Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Dear students, I Dr. Shivang Patel, Associate Professor from School of Computer Science, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, welcome you all from Chaitanya Studio of Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. In the lecture series of Python programming, we have discussed in previous session various types of loops. You can say that the various type of loop construct that we have discussed, for loop, while loop. Now in today's session, we are going to discuss functions in Python. So as you already aware in any programming language, that Python programming language also the concept function that can be used for reusability concept. So after completion of this unit, you will able to understand what is function, use of function in a program, understand different types of arguments used in the function, understand what is anonymous function, or you can say that the lambda function. Also you can able to understand the use of recursion, that function calls itself, that concept that you can understand after completion of this unit, and then after you can understand various scopes of variables that we will all demonstrate with examples. Now what is function or why the need of function is required? So normally we have seen whatever the programs till now, they are very small code, small line of codes are there. Now suppose in real life application, the code is not a small. In complex programming, the number of lines of particular source code that can be increased. So now for increased readability as well as for sake of simplicity, it is advisable to break your whole code into smaller parts, right? Now it is also useful if that small part of code you can able to execute whenever it is required. So that concept function that can be derived from this need, that you can able to use the code at any time in the program or at any location whenever it is required. So it is better to break the code into small portion, that is nothing but the function. So you can say that the function that can be used in the programming, if the longer code that you can divide into smaller one, and as and when required, you can able to use that particular code in the form of function. So whenever you are using the function, it is nothing but the block of code, or you can say that the set of statements that can be reused to perform some specific task, right? So if you want to execute that task again and again, you can simply call that function. So it is not required to write that whole statement or the block of statements again and again. So this way you can implement the reusability concept in the Python programming. Now for more readability as well as to use the code, as we have already discussed. Now basically the function that can be broadly categorized into built-in function and the user defined function. Now we are moving with the built-in function, or you can also say that the library function. So the Python is a rich set of libraries that we have already discussed. We have till now seen various inbuilt functions like print function that we have seen. Then after we have seen input function, we have seen int, that is for typecasting, that we have already discussed. So these are all the functions that we have seen, these are inbuilt function. So some of the libraries that are already available with the Python, so you are not requiring to create separate code for those functions, that is why it is considered as the built-in function, or you can say that the library function, because they are available already in the Python in the form of some libraries, right? So if you want to use those built-in function, it is not required to create some code, you just, or it is also not required to import or to call those libraries, because they are available with the Python code, right? Now user defined function, the function that are not available in the Python, for some specific task you want to execute those tasks, you are creating your own function, or you can say that the programmer can create their own function based on the requirement. That is called the user defined function, right? So you can create a function as per the logic that you are requiring, and as and when required you can simply call within the program. That is the concept of user defined function, right? Now what is the basic syntax for defining that particular function? If you are using the inbuilt function, then function definition is not required to create because it is already available in the form of libraries. But if you are creating some user defined function, then you are requiring to define that function properly. For defining the function, you are requiring the keyword def. So you can observe in the syntax, we are defining the function with the keyword def, that is define, then after the function name. Now what should be in the function name? So as you already aware, in other programming language as well as in Python programming language, function name, that is nothing but the identifier. So whatever the rules or the thumb rules you are applying to give the name of identifier, same can be applied here. Just like function name, that should not contain any space in between, then after it start with letter or some specific symbol that can be allowed in Python. The function name cannot be start with the number. All these basic rules that you already aware with the identifiers, all are applied here. Then after in parenthesis, you can observe here multiple arguments or parameters that you are passing. Now this is optional, that's why it is here in the square bracket. Say for example p1, p2 up to pn. So parameter 1, parameter 2 up to parameter n. So according to your requirement, you can pass here 1 parameter, 2 parameter, multiple parameter or no parameters, right? So that's why it is optional. When parenthesis that will be completed, you have to put colon sign, that is in the syntax. So if you are not putting colon sign, then whatever the statements after that function definition that are having no indentation. So Python cannot understand the block of code or whatever the statements you are writing that is within that function body. So it is mandatory to write here colon as in the syntax. Then after whatever the statement you are writing, that can be started with some indentation. So Python will understand those statements are within that particular function body. So say for example statement 1, statement 2, statement n, multiple statement that you can write here. You can say that whatever the logic of the function that you have to put here in the form of statements. Then after return statement is there. So return, then expression, and then after it is optional. So it is not mandatory to write this return statement. Some of the statement can return some value and some of the statement doesn't return anything, right? So based on that, different types for based on number of parameters that can be defined. You can observe basically 4 fundamental types: a function with no parameters and no return value. That means you are not passing any of the parameter while you are defining the function. In the same case, the function doesn't return anything, that means the function has no return value. That is the first type. Second thing, function has no parameter and return a value. Then after third type, function with parameters and no return value, and the fourth is function with parameters and return a value. Here you have to understand one thing, as in any other programming languages, function can return only single value at a time, but here it is not in the case Python. You can return multiple values that we will see later on with the help of demonstration. So you can get idea that function in the Python can allow to return single value as well as multiple value at a time for different parameters or different variables, right? Now we can see one example, so you can get more idea how to define the function in Python. So we will see one simple example to check whether the number is even or odd, right? So for that we are taking one number from the user. So we are storing this in one variable. Say for example we are defining the variable number. Then after integer, as you already aware, whatever the input function, built-in function, that will take string data. If you want to perform any kind of operation, say for example arithmetic or comparison operation, you are requiring to convert that string into integer. So we are using the concept typecasting here, that is why integer function, inbuilt function we are using here. Now you are type the message, enter any number, then after when the user will enter any number, you can check whether it is negative, whether it is 0 or whether it is positive. So you can use one condition, if condition, say for example number is greater than or greater than 0, say for example. In that case what happened? You have to call that particular function. So say for example we are defining the function even odd and passing here the parameter number, right. So what happened? Whenever you are entering the value of number, it will pass here in this function. Now as we have discussed in the previous slide, function may return some value or may not return some value. So here whatever the logic to check whether the number is even or odd, that we will define in this function body, and after checking this logic it will return some value, right. So say for example if we want to check whether the number is even or odd and we are requiring to return the value in the form of any number which is odd or even, so we have to save that value in some variable. So here you can say for example result, or you can say that the answer equal to even or number. Now if number is greater than 0, in that case you are calculating or you are checking whether the number is even or odd. But in case of number is not greater than 0, simply you are typing a message, number is 0 or it is negative. This message you should pass to the user. Now the actual logic for even odd, so for that we are defining the function even odd. So as we have discussed in the syntax, if you want to define a function, you are requiring keyword def, that is define, then after proper identifier name that you have to represent here in the form of function name. So we have already defined the name even odd, then after you can pass here any argument. Say for example I am passing only one parameter or one argument and the name is num. Here you can also represent the data type with the help of colon sign, right. So this is the integer type, so you can define here integer. If you are not defining here, it is also valid syntax. Whenever you are entering any value, accordingly it will define the type. Now it ends with the colon sign. Now you are checking that particular function, whatever the value you are passing, that is even or odd. So for that you are passing here the logic, if number modulo 2, that double equals to 0. So if the remainder that is 0, in that case you can say that it is the even number, right. So we are printing here that thing, print. For printing that formatted output you are requiring this f. Now you can use here number, that is even. If it is not the case, in that case in the else part you are printing that the number is odd, right. Again formatted output we are requiring, so you can use here that particular number is odd. Now you can observe here one thing. First of all, from the user we are entering one number. It will check here with the sign of if number is greater than 0, yes, if it is greater than 0, then the next statement will execute answer equal to even odd number. Say for example I am entering 5 as a value in number variable, so even odd 5 here. So whenever this statement will execute, the control passes or jumps to this function definition even odd. Now number equal to 5, that value will be assigned to this num variable. Here the next statement is if num modulo 2, so 5 modulo 2 double equals to 0. If this condition is satisfied, the result is it is even. If it is not satisfied, then it is odd. So we will execute this code. First of all we are executing this code. It will ask for any number, say for example we are entering 5, so it is odd number. Again execute this code. Now at that time enter any even number, so it will represent 8, that is even. Again we are executing this code. Say for example we are entering this time negative value, then what happen? It will print the message number is 0 or negative, right? So once if it is checked in the if condition, accordingly it will display the result, and in the previous condition number greater than 0, if it is greater than 0 then and then this function will call, otherwise it will print the message number is 0 and negative, right? So this way you can define that particular function, right? Now we are concluding our session. In today's session we have discussed what is function and how this function can be used in the Python. We have also discussed various categories, broad categories of function, built-in function as well as user defined function. We have also discussed number of parameters that you are passing and accordingly various categories of function, right? We have discussed the function with one demonstration of even odd. Now in next subsequent session we will take few more example, so you can get more idea how the function will work, how the function will return some value or not return some value. We will also discuss various types of arguments in the next session. Till then, happy learning, keep coding. Thank you.